Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Be a Better You podcast. I am your host and subconscious reprogramming expert, as well as emotional abuse recovery mentor, Allison K. Dagny. Today's episode is about something I think a lot of us are avoiding. And I think we know that it's important, but our brain has convinced us that we don't have time for it. So if you're someone who finds that you're constantly busy, maybe you're trying to solve problems a lot, doing a lot of thinking, a lot of researching or analysis, maybe working a lot or distracting yourself, doing things even that's trying to heal. Well, I have a question for you. What if the thing that you've been avoiding is actually the thing that your brain needs the most for your healing? So today I'm going to explain why trying harder isn't always the answer, why your brain literally loses access to its best thinking under chronic stress, and then what finally changed everything for me. So the first thing I want to talk about is my story. Now, before I get into that, I just want to talk about the mindset that many of us have when we think about slowing down. And we think about things like, I'll slow down after the divorce, or I'll slow down after the kids get out of school, or I'll slow down after work, or when I make more money, or after my healing starts to show some more progress. Maybe after the certain project, or after I finish my list of chores, or whatever. And then what happens is that the finish line keeps moving. So maybe you've noticed this about yourself. Have you ever noticed that no matter how much you accomplish, it just doesn't feel like enough, and there's really never any time? So after I filed for divorce from my ex-husband, I really experienced a lot of stress. And if you have been through a divorce, you probably understand this as well. And back on July 7th, I released episode 224 about the things you don't expect after leaving a toxic relationship. And that is what sparked my idea to write this episode. Because oftentimes we don't think about all of the things that are going to happen, and we maybe expect or hope it's going to get easier, and a lot of times it doesn't. So for me, I was working, I was parenting my 3 kids, I was dealing with lawyers, I was researching things, I was doing healing work, going to therapy, working on my business. It was it's an understatement to say that I was stressed out. There was a lot happening. And part of me thought that maybe I just needed more discipline, or I needed to be more consistent, or work a little bit harder and try to get the answers and figure everything out. But what was really happening inside of me was I was slowly and steadily approaching a state of burnout. And this meant that I was overexhausting myself in all areas, not just like physically. I was burning out emotionally. I was burning out mentally. I wasn't able to think clearly. My brain was still in a state of fog. I would have trouble communicating with people. I may be more emotionally reactive. Had trouble making decisions. And this wasn't just because I didn't have healing. Because at that time, I was trying to work on my healing, but I hadn't done a lot of like the work that I do now. And then I did later in my journey. But there was very little strategy actually able to happen, and very little clarity because of the emotional, mental, and physical state that I was in, being in burnout. But the really surprising thing was what happened after I finally stopped behaving this way. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, because the thing that I had been avoiding was rest. And I'm not talking about sleep, I'm talking about rest. And there is a difference. So we avoid rest, okay? Not because we don't want to rest. It's because we believe we can't, or we don't have time, or if I stop, everything's going to fall apart, or I'm going to lose momentum or my place, or I'll fall behind, or I'm going to disappoint people, or maybe you would even have beliefs like successful people don't rest, or you have to work hard if you want to achieve the things that you want. And in some ways, I don't disagree with that, but the thing that most people miss is that rest is critical. It is critical for us. Like, there's a reason that we do sleep, because our body and our minds need to recharge. So a lot of the things that I just rattled off are just subconscious beliefs. They were things that were conditioned in you. And when you have things that are conditioned in you, you're going to operate based on those beliefs. So if you believe that if you don't work hard, or if you rest, that you're lazy, or that you'll be wasting your time, or disappointing people, or if things are going to fall apart, then that's what you're going to do. Like, you are going to act in accordance with your subconscious beliefs. So part of this is starting to inspect what you truly believe. What do you believe about rest? What do you believe about hard work? Because, like I said before, the thing that I was avoiding was rest. Now, I am, for those of you who are familiar with astrology, I'm a Capricorn. For those of you who are familiar with human design, I'm a generator. So I have a lot of energy. I have the ability to work long hours and not really feel very exhausted. However, there is a limit for everyone, and there's even a limit for me. And so if I push myself too far, which I did a lot during that time, other areas of my life were suffering, and I was struggling. So I want to talk about what your brain is doing. So when we're in chronic stress, our cortisol levels start to increase. And cortisol is a hormone that is produced by your adrenal glands. It is basically your body's primary stress hormone. It is a necessary thing. It is essential for survival. It helps you regulate your blood sugar, metabolism, and different things like that. And during stress, these cortisol levels spike to fuel you into fight or flight. But if you're in chronic elevation of cortisol, this really can negatively impact your health and puts you in survival mode. So this is what your brain is doing. This is the science behind that. So your prefrontal cortex, which is the front part of your brain, it is responsible for planning, for problem solving, creativity, perspective, regulating your emotions, decision making, things like that. So when your stress stays high, access to all of this goes down. It gets lower. Your amygdala is the part of your brain that is responsible for activating that fight or flight mode. It is responsible for when you have hypervigilance. If you are trying to detect threats, everything feels urgent or like an emergency or dangerous. So these parts of your brain are all working to support you and help you. But if you are not resting and you are constantly, continually keeping yourself in this chronic state of excess cortisol, chronic stress, your amygdala's firing, your prefrontal cortex goes offline, you can't truly be at your best. So things that will affect you: decision fatigue, meaning you are having a very hard time making a decision, not thinking you can make the right decision. You might be planning in your mind, thinking about it, replaying things, but having trouble pulling the trigger and deciding what the best thing to do is. And this becomes really exhausting, and it kind of leans into rumination in a way, because your brain just keeps repeating these things over and over again. So I want to talk to you about where some of these breakthroughs can happen so you can use them. And there is a place, well, there are many places where default mode kind of kicks in for you to help you rest. So let's think about some of these places. If you shower, right? If you're taking a shower, this can be an opportunity for you to rest, right? You're still moving, you're still doing things, but this is an opportunity for you to intentionally choose that this is a rest moment for you. If you are listening to this and you're nodding along like, yep, this is me, and you're ready to actually shift this and not just keep managing and coping, I invite you to schedule a free call from the link in the show notes. On that call, we're going to look at where you're at right now, where you want to be emotionally, and start uncovering what is actually in the way. And then I'm going to give you my recommendations and point you in the right direction if any of my programs might feel like a fit. And if it's aligned, we'll move forward. If not, you still leave with some clarity. All right, now let's get back to the episode. If you take a walk for exercise or walking the dog, walking to the mailbox, can be rest, driving, gardening, listening to music, watching the birds, right? These things are actually happening to you if you pay attention. And have you heard me talk before about the reticular activating system, which is your RAS, R-A-S? This is your brain's filtration system. And the more that you filter for what you want to see, the more you will see it. So let's start focusing on those things so that you can bring that default mode to the forefront of your mind and start noticing opportunities for rest even more. So we're going to talk a little bit further about what rest isn't actually what you think it is, based on your subconscious beliefs. But before we get into that, I want to just acknowledge that you might be realizing that you have forgotten how to rest, and maybe you're not somebody who is taking enough rest for yourself, but you're not alone if that's the case, because a lot of survivors spend years living in survival mode like this, and your brain just gets really accustomed to scanning for problems. And when you're in this state for so long, slowing down actually feels really uncomfortable or really unsafe, and it's unfamiliar to you. So if that's where you are, I don't want you to pressure yourself to have to figure it all out, or like, how am I going to start resting? Like, nothing like that. We can just start somewhere simple. Sometimes the best thing you can do is let somebody else guide your mind instead of carrying everything by yourself. And that's why I created the My Sound Mind Subconscious Audio Library. These are guided audio experiences with sound frequencies embedded into them, with subconscious language that is intentional to speak to your subconscious mind. They're not subliminal. Some of them are very uplifting. Some of them have lyrics. Some of them are just spoken words with audio and music behind it. And they're designed to help calm your nervous system or lift you up if you're feeling low. So you can stop striving, stop trying to solve everything, and just be present for a few minutes of your day. And behind the scenes, right, the subconscious stuff is working. So sometimes rest happens in a community when you're around people who are learning to slow down, to laugh together, to heal, to enjoy life. And it gives you the permission to do that too. And that is one of my favorite parts of my Radiate and Rise community, because healing does not just happen in isolation when we're sitting by ourselves and journaling, right? Sometimes it happens while we're connecting with others and sharing and remembering what joy feels like. Sometimes rest is just listening to a podcast when you're out for that walk, or you're taking your shower, or intentionally choosing to play instead of just doing something that feels like work. So if you're thinking, I don't even know where to begin, I've made that easy for you. If you go to my website, right at the top, you can just put your email in and download a free healing bundle. And in that, there are 5 days of guided audio coaching from me that you'll get each day into your inbox. There's a deconditioning workbook. There's access to these My Sound Mind audios. It's the preview, so probably like the first 10. So you don't have to know exactly what you need yet. You can just take the first step. So now let's just pivot over to why rest isn't what you think it is. And I want to challenge these beliefs, and that's what I do. That's my job, is to challenge beliefs. Because when we believe something and it disagrees with reality, we suffer. So we often can't change our reality. We often can't make people be different. So if we can't see other perspectives or shift the way that we think, we will always be suffering. And I don't know about you, but I don't like to do that. I don't want to do that. So let's talk about these beliefs about rest that many people carry. Rest is quitting. Rest is wasting time. Rest is not productive. Rest isn't doing anything for me. Rest is not helpful, right? These are things people have as subconscious beliefs that were conditioned in them at some point in their life, whether it was in childhood, in an emotionally abusive relationship, in their culture, whatever that might be. But what if we challenge these beliefs, right? What if rest is actually the thing that we need so that we can recharge and be more clear thinking, be able to come up with creative ideas, have some insight or inspiration? If you're always looking at it like it's a waste of time or that there's always something that needs to be done, you're never going to have the opportunity to be inspired. You're never going to have the opportunity to have things come into your awareness because your brain is never turning off. And again, I don't even mean like you have to turn it off necessarily, but like if it's constantly in overdrive, right? And you're in this like spike of cortisol constantly, like this high level of cortisol, then it's going to be very difficult for you to get out of that emotional fog. You will be in burnout and you will be struggling. I don't know about you, but some of the best ideas or thoughts or moments of clarity have come for me when I'm having fun. So if I'm doing something that I enjoy doing, if I'm painting a picture because I love to paint, or if I am playing tennis with my kids, or if I am doing a puzzle, things that I like to do. Sometimes I'm like, oh, it gives me the clarity that I need. And I believe this is because your brain has had an opportunity to rest. You're not thinking of it like that. And again, rest doesn't have to be just like turning into a zombie on your couch and, scrolling TikTok. That's not what I mean. I mean, it's finding, like I said before, the shower, the walks, the drives. Like these are opportunities that you can actually classify as opportunities for rest. Play is rest. When you're on vacation, you do things on vacation. You're resting too, right? You might play volleyball on the beach. You might walk on the beach if you go to a beach location. If you go on vacation in the mountains and you're skiing, you're doing something, but you're technically resting. You're turning off the part of your brain that is always trying to figure things out, always trying to fix problems, always trying to reach a goal or figure something out. That's what I'm talking about. So it can look different for everyone. It doesn't have to look the same for you as it does for me. But where are ways that you can incorporate rest into your day? Some people find rest in cooking, and some people find that cooking is not restful at all, right? I don't find it restful because I do it every single day, multiple times a day. It's not restful to me. It's restful to me when my boyfriend orders takeout. That's restful. And I don't have to cook and I don't have to clean up. But for some people, cooking is fun and it is restful and it is something that they like to do. So what is it for you? What brings you that rest? What lights you up? What makes you feel good? Could be even reading a book about something that you're interested in or something that takes you into a fantasy world, right? These are all forms of rest. And a lot of times people just think that rest means you're just going to not do anything. And that is partly why these beliefs are things like, oh, rest is wasting time. Now, do I believe that you can just rest, sit with your eyes closed on the couch for 20 minutes and just not be interrupted and get a lot of benefit from that? Absolutely. Absolutely. And do I do that sometimes? Yes, I do. Meditation is rest for me, but reading tarot cards is rest for me. Reading books is rest for me. Being alone in my room for 20 minutes while I take a shower is rest for me. So the part that I want you to think about is, what is rest for you? What does that look like for you? And sometimes we have a hard time with this because we are still thinking, well, I'm not resting if I'm going for a walk. But we can change the definition of what rest means. Okay? We can change it. It doesn't have to be what traditionally people think is take a break, just sit down, just close your eyes, just be quiet, just turn all the noise off. It doesn't have to be that. I could be listening to audios in my library. It could be showing up to one of my coaching calls in my community, right? That gives you rest. So as I said the story before about what I was going through in my divorce, here's what happened. I was completely burnt out. I was so exhausted. And my boyfriend and I decided to plan a trip to Hawaii. I had never been there. I'd always wanted to go. And if we were going to do it, we're going to do it big. So we did first class tickets. We stayed in a really nice hotel. All the kids were with us. We had excursions for every day. We went snorkeling. We went to the place where they filmed Jurassic Park. We went to a beautiful hike with a waterfall. And we went shopping a lot, and we ate lots of really good food. And this was like, I'm not saying you have to go to Hawaii, okay? But this was the thing that helped me realize that I needed rest. Before I went, now I was, working as a coach at this time. I was selling books and things like that. So before I went, I just scheduled everything that I needed to go out for the week so that I didn't have to worry about being on my social media, checking in on things. I had no appointments on my calendar, obviously, because I wasn't working from Hawaii. But having so much fun and really just turning off all of the noise and being able to be present and enjoy my life and my family gave me so much more energy. It gave me clarity. I had good ideas. I had amazing insights and realizations during that time that I would have never, ever had I not actively chosen to do that. Now, again, I'm not saying you have to go to Hawaii and book, a trip. That's not what I'm saying you have to do. What I think is important for you to do is recognize where rest is lacking and what can you do to incorporate more of it into your life and see what happens. Because if you're avoiding this, not only are you going to end up in burnout, you're going to keep spinning your wheels and you're probably going to stay stuck where you are. So don't underestimate the value of rest, however that is defined, right? Because you can define it in different ways. Don't underestimate the value of it. Because without it, you run yourself into the ground. Your cortisol levels are through the roof. You have no sense of strategy or clarity of mind. And this is not helpful or supportive in life in general, but especially if you're going through like a difficult time like I was with a divorce or a lot of stressful things happening. You might believe that you can't be doing that because you don't have time or all these other things need to get done and everything is so important. But I'm telling you, if you keep thinking that way, you'll keep doing it. So where can you start to shift and see, hey, maybe rest is more important than I've ever given it emphasis, right? Where can I say this is actually important? Again, I'm not talking about self-care because that is a form of rest, but it is different. You don't have to do actual self-care activities to rest. It might kind of look the same and kind of bleed into each other, but do what you will with it and figure out what works for you. So ask yourself, where is rest lacking and where can I start just with a baby step to incorporate more of it into my life? And I think why this gets confusing sometimes is because sometimes self-care feels like it's just another thing you have to do. It's like, oh, I have to journal, or oh, I got to work out, or oh, I have to, do my skincare or my morning routine, and it just feels like more activity than you're already adding to the things that you are overwhelmed with. So maybe the shift here, instead of asking what else can I do, maybe what can I stop doing? This could be another shift, right? What could I stop doing? And then you might be like, oh no, that brings up some fears, that brings up some anxiety, because if I stop doing something, then things are going to fall apart, or I'm going to lose this court case against my ex, or if I stop doing the laundry, then my kids aren't going to have clean clothes, right? Like, I'm not saying you need to do that, but like, identify. If it's not, where can I incorporate rest, like, and acknowledge it, like showers and walks and things you're already doing. Well, what else can I stop doing? Maybe you need to stop doing certain things and let people do things for you, right? A lot of us struggle with this because we feel like we have to be independent or we have to do more. And there might be people out there who are willing to help you do things, and you could rest if they did. But we're refusing it because we feel guilty, or we feel like we're going to owe them something, or we have to prove something to others by us just taking care of it, or prove that we're really strong, whatever that might be, right? But maybe you have kids, maybe you have a spouse, maybe you have a significant other, maybe you have a family member, a parent, friends who are willing to help you, but you're refusing because you feel like you shouldn't be resting. So think about that. Maybe there's areas that you could stop doing something and start accepting help so that you can rest. So let me just recap on some ideas for you that you can identify as rest. Rest is play. Okay? Rest as laughter. I sometimes get on TikTok and find funny videos and just watch them to giggle because it just raises my emotions and it's fun, and it might be the dumbest stuff, but it helps me, and that is rest. It's recharging me. It's shifting how I feel, which I love. Music is deeply restful for people, depending on what kind of music you like. Dancing, I know it sounds like it's backwards. Like, how is dancing rest? Because you're taking yourself out of the grind of all these things that you feel like you have to be doing that are creating stress. Most people, when they're doing these things, aren't feeling stressed. That's the distinguishing factor. Being in nature, reading fantasy or fiction, gardening is a wonderful way to rest. And yes, it is activity, but for some people, it can be very restful. If it's not your thing, that's fine, right? I'm just throwing these ideas out here. Maybe just spending time with people in their presence that feel really safe and good to you. Coloring, go back to your roots. Think about things that when you were a kid you really enjoyed doing. What did you really enjoy doing? And think about those things and how you can incorporate those things. It might feel like play. Yes, it is. But play is also rest because it takes you out of the grind of what I should be doing and, how I have to work so hard, right? We've got to reframe this. You could, like I said, listen to the audios in the My Sound Mind library. Get free samples of those right on my website and start listening. Just press play. Come into the Radiate and Rise community. Do the things that we're doing with us in a group. You never have to show your face. You never even have to come on audio or video. You can just listen if you want, or just listen to the recordings if you don't want to be live. But you're still going to get some rest out of that. It's still going to be healing for you. It's still going to give you something. You're going to learn. You're going to shift, right? So what can you do for yourself that's restful? So rest is going to make you more productive in the long run, okay? Because when we're constantly busy, what we're doing is we're staying tactical. We're reacting. We're putting out fires. We're doing more. But what rest does, gives you perspective. It helps you with strategy. It helps you be more creative. I get the most creative ideas when I'm laying in bed, falling asleep at night. I have the wildest imagination when I'm doing that. I come up with the amazing, creative things for my business, things for my books, when I'm falling asleep, when I'm resting. You could come up with solutions to problems easier. Innovation, insights, realizations when you're resting. It's not when you're, buzzing around and researching and trying to figure things out on the computer. That's not when those things happen. It's when your brain has a chance to actually relax. So here's a challenge for you. If you want to do this after listening this week, don't add more to your list. Don't add another task, but schedule in recovery or schedule in some rest. And the way best to do this is to go to your calendar on your phone right now and put an hour appointment for a date in the future that you know you can commit to it. And protect this like you would any appointment, a doctor's appointment, an appointment to go watch your kid's piano recital, whatever it is. And notice what happens during that time. That's your rest. And you can say whatever it is, listening to music, reading a book, going for a walk, taking a long shower, whatever it is, you choose, right? It doesn't matter. But notice in that moment when you're doing it, what happens to you. Notice how your body feels. Notice how your emotions feel. Notice if any ideas come to you. Just notice what your brain finally has room to hold, to process, and to experience. So maybe the breakthrough that you've been chasing isn't in a YouTube video, isn't in another book, isn't in this podcast even, isn't in a course, isn't in a late night brainstorming session trying to figure everything out. Maybe these breakthroughs are happening in the space that you've been avoiding to create for yourself. Because here's the thing. The one thing that you're avoiding is the very thing that is contributing to you staying stuck. So before we wrap up, I want you to ask yourself this one question. When was the last time you did something that had absolutely no purpose other than bringing you joy? And if you can't think of anything, then my friend, it's time to plan that into your calendar. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you listening week to week, sharing these episodes with people. I'm sure you know somebody who works hard like this and never has a chance to rest. Forward this podcast to them. Let them listen to it. You can go back and listen to it as many times as you want. I'm always here to support you. If you have ideas for podcast episodes that you'd like me to address, just send me a message on Instagram or Facebook and I'd be happy to address it. If you're interested in the My Sound Mind library or the healing bundle or the community, go to my website. The link is in the show notes and you have access to all of that. Thanks for being here. Talk to you next week.